GT Divide Podcast. I'm at another episode. Hope I appreciate you guys rocking with us. Please like, subscribe, share if you like our content. I'm gonna go heavy this week on men being men. I'll talk a little about the election stuff, but I'm gonna start here with Jesus walk with authority. Um, that's the thing that I think the world has forgotten. I think men in the world have forgotten. I think the world has also turned men into something that they're not supposed to be. But I think that you have to be careful that you don't wish that you live like other men in the world. So you got dudes out here that what's his name, Offset, that was dating or married to um, Nicki Minaj, and he out here got multiple women. I think dudes are envious of that. Real men are envious of that. You got to be careful that you don't envy the way that other people live their life. You got to live your life the way God intended for you to live their life. But I'm gonna let him talk real quick, and we'll come back to it.
Jesus walked with authority.
He did.
Because he knew I am walking like a man is supposed to walk.
That's exactly right.
And Christian men need to walk like we're the prototypical man. Now, it ain't arrogance and
No.
self-righteousness because we're only that because he
That's
created
exactly
us that
right.
way.
That's exactly
he
right.
made us that. Jesus
That's
made
right.
us that. But we are the prototypical man. And I say to brothers like, look, a lot of y'all privately, you envying the Playboy. You envying the Mac, right? Now you might not be out there doing that.
but
And one thing on that he says that they're envying those guys that are out there doing that is an envious heart leads to sin, and I think that part of the problem is that when you are a Christian man, you have to live a certain way. But I think when you got so much power and heat against you, uh, you tend to conform a little bit, and I think that's what they're talking about here. Um, Christian men not standing firm in the faith, standing on their beliefs, not being strong and courageous like we were created to be, but kind of you allowing current culture to change how we are as men. It's crazy that we have a culture of manhood now that allows women to get beat up while we watch. We'll get our phone and be trying to be, get likes on the internet. Whereas back in the day, man, if a dude's beating up a chick and some other dude seen it, they was gonna go get dude. Like that's how it was. That's the mindset they had. But that's a mentality that's being pushed out of our kids. It's being pushed out of our kids at a young age. Um, and I'll talk about that later on. But that's huge as to the reason why the culture has changed. Men got to step up, but also we have to the culture itself has changed. And as we get further away from God, which you'll see in politics, you'll even see it in churches, you'll see it in schools, you'll see it in all walks of life, is that men start to conform. Because I mean, after you get beat down for so long, like eventually you're just gonna be like, dude, it's just like slavery. Like you act like black people wanted to just keep being slaves back then. No, like they didn't want to keep being slaves, but because of being beat down and oppressed for so long, you just kind of conform to it. Like this is just the lifestyle that I'm going to live. So I'm going to be this dude's slave for all of my life. I'm going to die a slave. And so sometimes you get beat down so much because of society when you don't have that masculine center, that masculine base, and it takes other men to help men out too. Like you see a brother struggling, you go talk to him. You see a brother that has some issues, you go have a conversation and you pray for him. I think that's missing in society. And so once you get so far beyond the on the pale, you look and you start to envy people because you see visual success. And visual success, you gotta be careful because visual success isn't always actual success. Just because somebody looks like they got it all or they look like they got it going on doesn't mean that they actually have it going on. And so we have to understand that as men, that we are privileged as Christian men to be able to have someone in our corner who is consistent, right, all the time. Jesus ain't never going to change. You know what I'm saying? People change, Jesus won't. And so we have to understand that. So we have to continue to work to be rooted, right, as men, and then to separate ourselves from the world. Because at the end of the day, um, when you look from the beginning, men's number one mistake was being out of position. He's out of place. So when Adam and Eve were in the garden, Adam was out of place. Adam was not where he needed to be. And so when Adam was not where he needed to be, look what happened to the world. Look where how sin enters. Sin enters when men are out of place, right? When you look at the Bible and some of the fierce battles against evil, God picked some of the most masculine men, right? He would choose somebody who might be a murderer and turn him into something, but he knew that that guy had that in him. He had in him what he needed to be able to accomplish whatever goal Jesus needed him to accomplish. I'm not saying men be killers or murderers, but I'm saying you have to have that dog in you. You have to have that inside of you for you to be able to stand up. Because at the end of the day, you're going to be standing up against your own people as men. As you get closer to Jesus, as a man of faith, a Christian man, you have to stand up against your own people. Your own people will come down on you, right? Because there's a battle going on, a spiritual battle for control. And I'll talk about that on a later episode later on this week about that and why that is so evident, so important. But I'm gonna let him finish, but I just want to kind of dive in on that. The reason why men become envious is because you get beat down for so long and you eventually just want what somebody else has because you don't want what you got. Like what you got has become something that you no longer desire. So now you want what somebody else has because you've been beat down for so long. And so we can't let society beat us down. We got to stand up for each other. But you have to start. It starts by standing up yourself. And so we have to be the men that we're called to be and not the men that that society wants us to be. And like I said, when you become the man that God wants you to be, evil will try to bring you back because evil wants feminine men. Like if the world wants it, the world's going to go opposite of what God wants. So if the world wants feminine men, darn well God don't want a feminine man. He actually says that in the Bible. And then he also talks about cowards and being fearful. In Revelations 21:8, he says, but the fearful. He doesn't want his men, his people to be fearful. If you're afraid of the world, you're going to do what the world tells you to do. And you're going to end up conforming to whatever it is that you fear. We can go back to COVID. That's fear. The world proved that they can put fear in anybody, right? And people won't stand. But there were people that did stand. There were people that did stand when COVID came. Because when famine comes, you're going to have to stand. Eventually, you're going to have to stand. Eventually, you have to take a stand on it and say, say, I'm standing in faith. People will tell you you're dumb. When you stand in faith, people that are close to you will tell you that you're stupid. They will tell you that you're stupid. You will know why they're telling you that you're stupid because their faith isn't as big as your faith. So when they tell you that you're stupid, that tells you that you're doing something that's not conforming to the world. Because if the world can scare you with a virus, right? If the world can scare you into doing what they want you to do with a virus, they can scare you into doing anything. So now who's in control? Is God in control or is the world in control? And so that's where you have the opportunity to stand in faith. And when you have that, you've got to do it. Yes, it's going to suck. It's not going to be easy. You're going to have turmoil. You're going to have fights within your own household because you're trying to stand in faith, right? There's a battle for control. And I don't want to dive into that yet because that's a whole nother podcast. But I'm gonna let him finish real quick, and then we'll hit the rebuttal at the end.
It's probably
you living vicarious. Yeah. You
right,
living through Drake.
Like to, right. Like yeah, man. That boy, he got to go in there, man. I wish I could do that.
Yeah.
That shouldn't. You should feel sorry for that, brother.
Absolutely.
Stop envying the Max. Stop envying the pimp and all that stuff. Yeah. Especially you, a man of God.
Yeah, for sure.
And so that's part of we need to walk with the authority.
I agree.
That a man, a guy should walk with. You look at the men in the Bible, they walked strong. And you notice in the Bible, there's not a dearth of men. There's not a lack of men of God. Why in the church in America is there a lack of men of God?
That's a good one. So in the Bible, men did walk a particular way because Jesus was here. He was the example, right? And this is after the fall of man. So men already fell. Adam and Eve already happened. Men already fell. And so God came and showed men what it means. And now it doesn't mean be strong, masculine, bully all the time. No. You can also be loving and caring in a strong, masculine way, right? You don't have to flip to feminine to be loving and caring. And I think that society wants you to believe that you have to be feminine to be loving and caring. No, you can be masculine and love and care the way a masculine man does, the way a man of God does. Because a lot of the men that fought battles in the Bible, when you look at them, Paul was not feminine. David was not feminine. Elijah was not feminine. Like, these were not feminine men. God did not put feminine men around. Like, Jesus did not come to the earth and say, let me get all these feminine men to come around me. No, he took strong men. He took men from backgrounds that are absolutely ludicrous and crazy. Like, when you think what Paul was before he became Paul, right? When you think about what King David was before he became what he was, the stuff that he battled with, murdering, adultery, all that stuff that he battled with, a lot of stuff. God took some of the most hardened dudes. God can go into a prison and take a hardened criminal, right, and turn him into something more than he can go to a church and grab a feminine man out of a church, and turn him into something. Like, he can get something more out of that guy from prison than he can from that feminine man. The Bible literally talks about being effeminate multiple times. I mean, when you look at the downfall of a lot of places, I mean, you can look at Gomorrah, Sodom and Gomorrah, the story of that right there. I mean, you got men laying with men, being feminine. God does not like that. That is not what he called men to be. So if society is saying that men need to be that, then that's when you know that evil is involved. I mean, if you look at society today as a whole anyway, I mean, you got the Olympics is based on paganism. And then you got the worship god Baal. So they had the bull at the Olympics. And if you know any history about who Baal is, Jezebel and Ahab worshipped, you understand what that means, what that is. That's a spirit of control, right? That's a god of control. It's a god of sexuality. And so all these things are happening in the world today, and we got to be paying attention as men, because you can knock a civilization down by taking the strongest men out of the civilization. You make the strongest men weak. That's how you do it. And you want to know how you make the strongest men weak? The easiest way to make the strongest men weak: tell the women that they need a weaker man. Tell the women that they're in charge. They don't need a man. Just what you tell them for number one. They don't need a man, right? They can do what men do. You tell them that. So you start accounting for the pride that's in women, because women naturally have a prowess to want to be godlike. If they didn't, Eve would not have eaten the apple because she wanted to be godlike. She ate the apple because she wanted to be in charge, in control of the relationship. I can eat the apple before Adam, and then I can have the knowledge, and then I can give the knowledge to Adam. Who's in charge then, right? Who is in control then, right? But you have to think at the same time, there's a snake talking, and this woman was listening to a talking snake, right? There's a reason why he went after her. So society is doing exactly what was done in the Garden of Eden. They're going after women, telling women, you're men, you can do anything a man can do, you're just like men. When women have a role that is important. Their role is extremely important. The nurturing, the love that they have, right? Their role is extremely important. Just like man's role is important. But when you tell a woman she needs to take the woe out and just be a man, then that's when you start to change the trajectory of society. And the devil has effectively done that. He does that in the church too. So like, the churches are not, able to keep themselves off of what the devil's trying to do, because he's doing it inside churches. Like, there's a reason why churches have less men going to them. There's more women going to them, right? Because the churches have even marginalized themselves toward the doctrination of our society today. Very rarely do you have a church that speaks to men the way that a church needs to speak to men. I've been listening to Bishop Wallace a lot. He speaks to men a lot. Like in his church, he actually has sermons where he's not speaking down to men. He's not saying, "Oh man, you suck." No. He's telling them this is what society needs from you. Society needs you to do this. God called you to be this, so we need you to be this, and I'm gonna help you become that. You don't get that in churches. No, you don't really get that in churches anymore. Churches are afraid to actually speak the word of God, right? They're more, let's go inspire people, and then let's build on inspiration, right? We're going to inspire people as opposed to give them the truth. We're going to inspire you. When you have a lot of inspiration going on, you're not going to have a lot of growth. And so that's the reason why church growth is down. Like since COVID happened, and then everybody was at home, and then people just didn't go back. And right, because churches got to have value. You have to have perceived value. You have to have perceived value, not just for women, but you have to have perceived value for men. Men have to have a reason to want to go there. And I think that you don't have a lot of men in Western church, a lot of men of God in church like you used to. Like you used to. Protectors, man, like protectors, providers, right? Teachers. Preachers are teachers, right? So they're teaching. But we don't have that anymore. We've turned into a society that is all about feelings and how we feel, and that's it. There's no emotional intelligence. There is no room for being an actual man, like in every essence of the word. Like you, the crazy thing that's happening in society, and I'm gonna talk about this on a later podcast too, because I got Kamala Harris was at RuPaul's show, and the Christians are gonna vote for this lady. And I'm gonna show you why you should not vote for that lady, what she represents. But that's on another podcast. Only if I dive into that, we'll be on here for hours. But even when you have a young kid, 4 or 5, a young boy that wants to dress like a girl, like, is it not okay to tell them the truth? Like we've gotten to the point where it's like we gotta call him. We gotta let little Timmy, if he wants to dress like this. No, I'm a hard stance on that. No. They have to understand from a young age what they are, right? And there's a reason why they are that. God intended for them to be that. So if we're going to sit here and let little Timmy, oh, well, they're just innocent. And it's that type of stuff that starts the cycle of what we're having going on today. Then you have mental health issues in kids, right? Because they don't know. When you don't tell your kids the truth, they don't know the truth. So you're teaching them to lie by not telling them the truth. If God said you are a man and you don't tell your kid you're a boy right now, but you're going to grow and become a man, or your daughters, treat your daughters like daughters. That's your daughter. Even for me as a man, I got to treat my daughter like she's a daughter, because she's going to be a young woman one day. She's going to be somebody's wife one day, right? She has to be happy, fulfilled, and glorified in the fact that God made her a woman. Just like my sons have to be happy, right? Fulfilled and glorified in the fact that God made them young boys. He made them men. He chose them to be men for a reason. You teach them that from a young age, then the schools can't put that in their head and tell them, oh, you little Timmy, if you want to be Sierra, we can change you to Sierra. Like you that doesn't happen to kids, right? When they are told the truth from the jump. So we need to stop as parents hiding from the truth, hiding behind lies, teaching our kids to lie, essentially. We're hiding behind lies. Then we wonder why lies creep into the family. Well, because we're lying to our kids. And so we have to be honest with them. We have to be truthful. And understand that, Tim, you're going to be a strong young man one day. So daddy's going to teach you how to do that. Or my kid, I got Eli. That's one of my boys. That's my boy. Eli, you're going to be a strong young man one day. So I have to show you how to do that. I'm going to teach you how to become a strong young man, because the world needs more strong young men. The world needs more men of God that stand on the faith and tell the truth and keep it real. We don't need the feminist movement and all that crap that's going on inside churches now, because churches become feminine. Churches have also conformed very rarely. I mean, you might get one church in a city that will actually preach the gospel the way it's intended to be preached. Not because of culture. They're not changing because the culture is changing, because they're trying to keep butts in the seats. And what you'll see in those churches is you'll see the men step up in those churches. The men step up. They're not feminine dudes. And I'm not saying that it's masculine to open a door for your woman. That's masculine. That ain't feminine, right? There's things that men do, and we have to be okay with that. But I think we have to, as men of God, we have to stand. We have to stand firm in the faith, because God called for us to stand firm in the faith. He called for that. So as feminism continues to thrive in our culture, we can't conform to what the world is doing. If you conform to what the world is doing and your expectation is, well, the world says I got to do this, so I'm going to do this, then you are essentially not of Jesus Christ anymore. You're of the world. And you need to admit that. And I think when Jesus said in the Bible, because you got to think, who reads the Bible? Christians read the Bible. When he said broad is the gate, right? And then there's the narrow gate. So there's the broad gate and the narrow gate. He's talking to Christians. So are there Christians that are going to be on that narrow path? Absolutely a lot. Absolutely a lot. There's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot of people today that go to church every Sunday, they go to Bible study every week, they're in the choir, that are going to be on that big path. They're taking the big path. They're not taking a narrow path. Because even within Christianity itself, There is how much conformity are you going to actually do? How much are you actually going to give up to Jesus? Are you just going to give up bits and pieces and still do pieces over here? Are you going to, okay, well, I'm going to do this, so I'm comfortable doing it. Like, if you change, right, when you're baptized, you're supposed to change completely, but most of us don't change completely because we still want to do stuff that we used to do. We want to hold on to traditions of man. If you hold on to traditions of man, then you are of men. Men being the earthly man is in you, the earthly woman is in you, and you can't do that and expect that you're going to be on that narrow path. That's not what the narrow path is. The narrow path is people that literally conform everything. They give everything up, whatever it takes. You either have a whatever it takes attitude as a Christian man, or you have a I'm gonna take whatever I can attitude. It was two different things. And so you have to kind of decide that. But we got to step up as men. I know this podcast coming out early this week, but as we go through the week, you're going to see the escalation of I'm going to get a little bit more advanced, a little bit more hyper focused, a little bit more amped up about men being men. So there's three things I want y'all to take from today. Number one, we can't blame society for us not fulfilling what God has intended and called us to do. When the odds were stacked against King David, he handled business. When the odds were stacked against Paul, from his changing in, from him going from Saul to Paul, from him going from a murderer of Christians to Paul, right, who can write books in the Bible, right, glorified by God. When you understand that, you can become that, but you have to not conform to the culture. Second thing you do, stand in the faith. Don't let people deter you from the word, because guess what? The people closest to you will, your family, your friends. They'll be the first one like, oh, you can't do that. It'll be people at your own church. Oh, you can't. If you're going to do that, that's just different than what we're used to doing. So that if it's different than what they're used to doing, to them it's wrong. But you have to understand everything that Jesus was doing when he was on earth was different than what the world's doing. So if you're conforming to the world, I don't even want to do what you're doing anyway, because you're doing what the world's doing. You can't cast out paganism and do pagan stuff at the same time. You can't pagan over here, I'm going to be separate, but then do pagan stuff. That's what churches do. Churches will literally come on and they will get hyped up about Baal and the bull at the Olympics. They'll get hyped up about how they sexualized, right? Paganism sexualized the Last Supper at the Olympics, but then they'll still celebrate pagan holidays. You can't do that. Like that's the epitome of lukewarm. Like you either give it all to Christ, right, or you don't. I mean, that's literally, you have two options. And so we have to pick option number two. We're going to give it all to Christ. We're not going to take pieces here and there and say, well, I want to keep doing this because I like this, or I want to keep doing no. As a Christian man, in order for us to change the world, we have to be different. We have to strive to be different. We have to stand apart. I have a prior podcast. I'll type it up and I'll make sure that the link is in the description, that I talk about what it means to actually be set apart. Third thing we got to do, pray for each other, have conversation and fellowship with each other. Find your fellow man and have a conversation with them. If they're down, if they're out, if they're struggling financially, if they're struggling in their relationships, if they're struggling as a parent, we step in, we fill the void for other men, other Christian men of God. We have to help each other because ain't nobody else going to help us. Right? There's nobody else going to help us. If we don't help each other, no one's going to help us. So we have to step up and help each other, have those conversations, those hard conversations. They suck sometimes, man. I tell you, they suck. You're not going to always have great conversations when it comes to this, but you will have conversations. And that's the key. Because sometimes the wisdom of a man can help another man that's struggling. But that's all I got, man. I appreciate you guys rocking this GT the Bible podcast. Like, subscribe, share. All week, I'm going to be talking about stuff. I will be talking about some election stuff when it comes to the biblical realm. I'm going to keep it real. Some people ain't going to like me. I will lose subscribers, but I don't care because that ain't what I'm here for. I'm here to give the unapologetic word out, the unapologetic word, which means I'm going to keep it real. I'm going to just tell you what it say. I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it and tell you that you can have it your way. This is not Burger King. Christianity is not Burger King, but some people like to be served and have it their way. I want to have Christianity like Burger King. Give me my Whopper and fries, please. That's what I want. No, that's not how this works. This is not have it your way. That's going to be my slogan on a shirt. Christianity is not have it your way. And I'm going to have the BK on there. Burger King would probably get me if I do that. But But please like, subscribe, share. I appreciate you guys rocking with us again. I'm